Well, Dr. Warren, it's real funny. I guess what we have to say tonight, people are nervous to hear because at one point they said, we cannot hear you all, but now it is good, live, and live in color. So we want to say, first of all, welcome to you, Mr. Strong, for being with us
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
on
sir.
this evening. Dr. Warren, what a great debate.
It was a tremendous debate. It was handled well. She was masterful in the way she did it. Everything that she did was right. Body language, walking over to him to shake hands, taking control from the very beginning,
Well,
not falling for the trap with their questions, and using it to lay out a platform.
I'm going to take a different stand on this one, Dr. Warren.
Okay.
I actually want to applaud Donald Trump. I,
Oh
I
boy.
think that he did a masterful job at proving to us that he is who we all thought he was. The same person that we say is so confused that he even I use this statement and I said he is so stupid in his approach that he makes dumb look smart. And I felt like he literally stepped up and did exactly what we expected him to do. He stayed on script, and that was buffoonery. And so I want to applaud him and thank him for being exactly who we thought you were as a mayor, as a candidate. And then I want to say to Kamala Harris, job well done.
It was a job well done, and it was a masterful way of using every opportunity to lay out her program and her agenda where he had none. I think the only thing that upset me this morning, I spoke to someone and they made this statement when I asked them about last night. They said, well, she didn't, we were waiting for her to lay out policies. I said, you know what's wrong with that statement? You clearly don't know what policy is. If you had a definition of policy, you wouldn't be making a stupid statement because everything she proposed as a plan was a part of a policy to put it in place. When all Trump did was say, I got a concept, and that was like giving birth to a thought for him, but it didn't go any further. I think she killed him on the border issue. He can't get around the fact of what he did. I think when she made the statement that she had traveled the world as vice president, she had met with leaders, and they all thought he was a disgrace, and she looked him in the face and pointed to him. She told him how they would eat him for lunch. I mean, everything she said, he just didn't know how to bounce back. He never looked at her. And she looked him in the face. And then when she was not talking, her body language spoke for her, which was significant because I think David Muir got to be weak. They gave too much time to him, and he rambled and tried to take the time up, and they fell for the trap on several occasions. But she made use of every laser point that she made. And the only question now is the people who are still supporting Trump, I want to know what flavor Kool-Aid are they drinking?
Well, this honestly, some people don't really care if it's going to be good for the country. Some people just want to say, I'm going to stay vote Republican. I'm going to vote. The economy is going to be good. And it's almost like this. Mr. Strong,
Uh-oh.
I looked in the dictionary this morning and I looked up the word Denzel Washington and I saw a picture of you.
Oh, Lord.
And then I went
No,
to
they did, no.
I looked up the word Sidney Poitier and I saw a picture of you.
Come on,
you
man.
You are every man. Everybody who is important, you look just like.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
if
Keep
I
them blessings
said-
coming, my
if-
brother.
If I said that to him,
The check's
and
on his way.
then
huh?
he walked in that, then everybody's like, okay, he think he Denzel Sidney and all the. That's where Trump is.
That's right.
Trump. Anytime that you look up excellence, you're supposed to see a picture of Trump. Anytime that you see brilliant, you need to see a picture
Oh,
of Trump.
no, wait a minute. This turned to a
Yeah.
disservice to
Yeah, I don't
Mr.
know.
Starr.
I thought we were going to
No,
a good
no,
one.
no,
thought
no,
we
no, no. What I'm saying is that
Took a turn.
Mr. Strong is smart and intelligent enough to know that he is not all of these people. He is
That's
Andrew
right.
Strong. Whereas Donald Trump becomes whatever it is that makes him look good. We have the strongest economy ever. really.
Well, his niece already said 3 years ago, she already spoke about his psychological problems, and she's a psychiatrist. And she wrote a book about him, and so she already told us who he is and what he is. The key is kind of subtle. The key is, as it was pointed out today in one news feature, the people behind Trump need to use him as the vehicle to move the agenda of Project 2025. He's just a token. They wouldn't care what he did.
I've never read Project 25. Don't know nothing about it.
And that's a big lie. Just like asking him that time, have you ever asked God for forgiveness of sin? And
Who's
he
God?
And he said, well, I really try to keep God out of it. And then,
Look, y'all killing me. Y'all know I can't talk about politics up in here, man.
and then no, we're not going to get you in it. And then they asked him, and then one time he was telling them about how he was reading the book of Jobs, okay, because he didn't know it was Job.
Well, no Jobs, and they were black Jobs.
Yeah, and then it was 1 Corinthians now. 1 Corinthians.
Yes, one.
Yes, 1 Corinthians. I know there's a 2 Corinthians, but I'm dealing with the 1 Corinthians, okay?
Yeah.
And so, and once we saw him holding the Bible upside down, then we understood
Like Hitler.
what the problem was.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It always remind me of D. James Kennedy. He's dead now, who was at Coral Ridge in Florida. And a person approached him one day with a Greek Bible complaining about his ministry. And he paused and took the book from them and said, you got it upside down. Because they didn't know that he spoke fluent Greek.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, of course, so does, and she tries to hide it. But, LaTanya spent a year in Greece. When she came back, she was struggling with English because she had spent so much time there, and they were offering her positions in the diplomatic service and everything, and she turned all that down. Yeah. So we've had an exciting time today. There were watch parties last night. Our staff covered one. My concern is I don't want to hear what a great time they had at the watch party. I want to hear, now that you've been to the watch party, what are you going to do next?
And that's the biggest thing, Dr. Warren.
Yes.
We can take it yesterday as a win, that she did a masterful job. But now we have to now take that win and parlay it, because I was looking at the news today and they were saying of the different candidates that won their final debate but still lost the election.
Yeah.
And so we want to make sure that this is a rallying cry for us to even do more. We can see that she can handle difficult conversations, difficult situations. She was very presidential. It's from the beginning when she walked across, and again, he walked towards his podium. She walked past her podium and met him at his podium, introduced herself because, again, he said he had never met her before.
Yeah.
And she said, let's have a good debate. But the way she said it was like, okay, now that you can never say that you've never met me. And she then today...
And she walked over
out
to him today at the 9/11 memorial. Mm-hmm. She went up to him and shook hands. What was telltale last night in the spin section, after they do these debates, they had a spin. Mm-hmm. And so that's when all of their people say, I know what you heard, but let me tell you what you really heard.
Yeah. And
they start modifying it, okay? And there was a point where he was just standing in the middle of the floor. Mm-hmm. And wasn't nobody talking to him, okay? Mm-hmm. And so I still think, my problem is so much of the support for Donald Trump is based in racism and the fear that he's feeding. And one of the basic things they teach you in logic is that you may argue with what a person thinks, but you can never argue with what a person believes, because they're not going to change that. And that's why we have that adage, that song that says, fools rush in where angels dare not go, because angels got more sense. Okay, so we got all of this going. Now we're going to see, and we're going to have more discussion, but we're going to get to...
I got to ask one more last question.
Right.
J.D. Vance, he found the new word, platitudes, and kept on saying that she did platitudes. I talked about it on the morning show.
Well, who spelled it for him?
That was the funny thing. I talked about it on the morning show. I said, does anybody know what a platitude is? I knew what it meant and everything like that. So one of the conversations said, isn't that a plant with a bad attitude? Making a joke. But the thing about it is he used the word platitude to sound like he was super duper smart. To sound
Well, we
like
all knew better.
And that's why he kept using the word over and over again. If you want to effectively prove to people that you're so deep and you're so smart, you use it once.
Well,
And then make them go look it up.
well, look at this. Now, Nikki Haley was on Meet the Press Sunday, okay? If Nikki Haley had been his choice for vice president, he would have a real strong chance of recovery. She was more presidential. She would have matched Kamala on all of the international stuff because she's former ambassador to the UN. I think Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney coming out, I think they sent great messages. I don't know what George Bush's excuse is. Maybe somewhere with his paintbrush and he can't get away. Okay. Condoleezza Rice is maybe she's locked away up there at Stanford and scared to speak. I don't know. But you got so many people, white Republicans for Harris. And I think the statement she made last night about the 800,000 Polish people in Pennsylvania was a major move toward pulling them in her direction. So I think that if you consider that this woman in 2 months has gone from zero, what do they do on those racing cars? They got the RPMs up there. You know, she'd have gone all the way over into the other corner. You know, they done raised over $560 million separate and apart from anything that the Democratic National Committee had. My only concern is that they don't leave our community out while they're trying to shore up battleground. And I'm sending a message to the White House and to all of them that any place you got black folks is a battleground. And now they're trying to straddle her with the idea that she needs to go after the black male. Well, you need to let the sisters go after the black male because, I mean, you know, that's what happened to Abrams, Stacey down there. She omitted that element. I don't think there are a lot of black men in America that are going to gravitate to Donald Trump.
Well,
And maybe,
you know, there's some young people out there that says, he just like me. He a felon. He this. And I'm like, so we've heard all of that. But like I tell people all the time, I said, anytime a black woman said, this was the way we going. And if we ain't going, everything click, lockdown, we don't have to have no more discussion.
we'll come along.
We're going to come along.
Well, we don't want to touch our guest anymore. You know, he's barred from speaking in anything political. We understand.
All he can do is
So
laugh. And
for the
don't have to say
record,
it.
he didn't laugh. For the record, this was our discussion.
Thank you.
It wasn't planned before he came.
Appreciate you.
But because of what happened last night and all day today, because we're media, we had to pay homage and attention to some of it.
Exactly.
With that being said, we're honored to have Mr. Andrew Strong with us here. He is serving as the interim director, is it of public safety?
Yep, the interim deputy chief administrative
Deputy chief.
officer
Because all
for
the
public
people are
safety.
deputy chiefs
That's
now.
right.
What's so important about Mr. Strong is he was chief of staff to the former CAO, but he wasn't the first black chief of staff.
That's right.
Okay. Poochie Hatcher was the first black chief of staff.
Poochie.
His name, well, Poochie. We call him Poochie.
What was his real name, though?
Huh? Yeah, that's what he was known as Poochie. He was known as Poochie. Everybody knew Poochie throughout. I mean, he was a policeman in San Diego back when Tim Winters was, okay? And so he was the chief of staff to,
Was it Jensen?
what's his name, that came from OMB, Cliff Graves.
Oh, Cliff Graves.
To Cliff Graves. And so, but he knew everybody in San Diego. He knew everybody in the county, and he knew all of the stuff, and it worked. Andrew did a very special thing, being a chief of staff to a very sharp woman who understood business, stayed out of the spotlight, and really did a lot of things. But he went from that position to being head of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that in itself has not been an easy thing because they've had some crazy people that they put on the Leon Williams Commission.
Some challenging people.
No, crazy people. I'm going to call it like it is. They're crazy.
Oh, man.
They were racist. They were all messed up, okay? And I'm glad
All
that
voices at the table.
Yeah, you can't say nothing about it. But some of us even asked Leon to take his name off of it. Because
Sometime.
if you think about the whole concept of reconciliation, like they did in Australia and like Desmond Tutu did in South Africa, it was bringing people together who were adversely in different camps and weren't talking to each other, all right? And I had a chance to spend Jerry and I spent about 20 minutes on one occasion with Bishop Tudu while he was here, one-on-one with him. And it was so revealing in terms of his love for people overruled all of the politics that were taking place. And my wife has spent time in South Africa, and she told me something interesting. She said that Tutu lived on the same street as Nelson Mandela, that they just lived a few houses apart, okay, in terms of it. And so when you think of that kind of greatness coming out of what was otherwise seen as a slum and the worst of conditions,
That's right.
you know, it shows that God is able to take, just like he did in the Bethlehem stable, take a little bit and do a whole lot. And so Mr. Strong has done those things, and I was extremely impressed with this latest position of public safety, because we really don't have the full concept of public safety in San Diego like the state of Texas does. In the state of Texas, everything that's involved in law enforcement is public safety. I don't think the Rangers, they might be excluded.
In
The Texas Rangers.
No, I think that's
Yeah, but they are not.
Federal.
They're
State.
like they're like exception to the thing. But everything else is public safety. You know, from your sheriffs to your highway patrol to all of that. And so San Diego is a county of more than 4,200 square miles.
right.
Most of the people who live here in the urban area have no idea. There are places in San Diego where they still, for all intents and purposes, got a buck for it. Horse and buggy, they're making their own candles and the whole bit.
Unincorporated areas. That is true. That's right. The unincorporated areas. That's
and
right.
you know,
Backcountry.
coming from horses, I spent a lot of time in the past 20 years in the backcountry with these people, which is different. So one of the things I want Mr. Strong to do with us tonight is just clue us into how public safety works and the significance of it, because I found so many times that our community, especially when it comes to emergencies, we are the last ones to have volunteers to be involved in all of the safety things that take place. And we got to change that, hopefully.
Yeah.
So one of the things, Dr. Warren, before we go there, I kind of want to just do a quick background of who are you? In the sense that people see you, they know that you have influential position, but who are you? Are you a husband? Are you a father? Are you a deacon at the church? You know, who are you as we move forward? Because your impact on our community is going to be really great and has been great. And I want people to know the person more so than the title.
And I appreciate you. I appreciate the opportunity, and sitting here with a legend, Mr. John Warren, and you too, Dr. Leonard. I appreciate y'all giving me the opportunity to be here and talk a little bit about me. I actually do want to talk about the election, but I can't, so I appreciate that.
Right.
But yeah, a little bit about me. I'm not from San Diego. I'm originally from Shreveport, Louisiana, and so my ancestors were enslaved on the Oakland plantation and on the Cane River on my mama's side in Natchitoches, Louisiana, and grew up, and we had family reunions on that plantation. It's actually a national park to teach us about how our ancestors didn't just start there. They came from, queens and kings in Africa, and my dad's originally from Mississippi. He's from a little place called Rose, Mississippi. And a small little town, and grew up in the Jim Crow South too, and his first cousin was Medgar Evers, and he wrote back and forth with Medgar. Medgar tried to get him to be a lawyer when he was growing up, but my dad chose a different path. He joined the Air Force, and 20 years in the Air Force, and so he stationed in Shreveport, Bossier City, Louisiana, and that's where I grew up, and joined the Navy when I was 18, and left Louisiana, and that's what brought me to San Diego. I was in the Navy for 9 years. I was a hospital corpsman in the Navy, and got out in 2007, and figured I wanted to stick around San Diego because it's beautiful. I didn't want to go back to the heat and bugs down in the South. And so I stuck around here and ended up coming into the county, and came into the county of San Diego as a non-paid student worker when I was getting out of the Navy. And because I wanted to get my foot in the door, and I knew it was more important just to meet people and build connections and build relationships. And that's how you get ahead in the world. So that's what I decided to do. Came into the county in 2007, and I started as a non-paid student worker and left shortly after that and taught nurses and medical assistants at Kaplan College and then was able to come back to the county shortly after that, probably about a year and a half after that, and joined Human Resources. And ever since I came into the county, been in the county since then, and been at the county for 16 years in several different leadership positions, and was one of the few black men to navigate the county system, right, starting from the bottom and coming all the way up to this leadership position that I'm in right now. So, humbled and honored to have this opportunity, but also had opportunity to see a lot of things in the county that I'd like to help influence the change in and be the change, right, when it comes to it. Like you mentioned, Dr. Warren, I was director of equity and racial justice before this. You can't make it up, right? So a brother from the South, and have the opportunity to be the director of equity and racial justice at the County of San Diego, but also have opportunity to be the interim deputy chief administrative officer for the public safety group and bring some of that knowledge and lens and expertise into this role to influence the public safety group in a different way, and support them and help them do the work that the community wants them to do in the way the community wants them to do it. So,
Well, I want to give you a little caveat of encouragement. There's another famous Californian from Shreveport,
okay.
Louisiana, and that was a Congressman Augustus F. Hawkins, who represented Watts in the Congress.
Oh, wow.
And he's the one that brought me to California, and back in the late 70s. And so we did congressional hearings here, and we met people. And he kind of reminded you of Elmer Fudd if you look him up. He kind of looked like him and everything, but the people of California loved him. He served in the California legislature when Jess Unruh was governor. And what happened was he was so well loved that he was about to become speaker back in about 52.
Oh, wow.
But they knew that California was not ready for a black man to be speaker. So they carved out that district in Watts and created it for him. And Hawkins looked like a white man, so they never put his picture on a poster in all the years. And I served with him on years on the committee, and I didn't know he was black. Well, my colleagues say, well, we got another black member other than Powell. I said, nobody else black up there. And then she says,
Sure enough.
Mr. Hawkins. So then when he and I did hearings, we would travel around the country. We were charged with special hearings for the poverty program. And he would have me sit with him. He first brought me to San Diego. And the people would say, why would the Congress send a white man out here to meet with us? And he and I would look at it. He says, John, where's the white man? I say, oh, no. So Louisiana has made strong contributions here.
Oh, that's good.
And I have a special appreciation for where you were when we first met, because back in 1987, I started my career with the county down at the other end of that hall.
That's right, county council, right?
Yeah, when I was the law clerk for county council. And I had the dubious distinction at the time of being the only black male in there. And Lord Harmon wanted desperately for me to stay, but I wasn't able to. And so he helped me move from the county to the city. But the county in those days, it was lily white.
And the county's come a long way.
Yes,
the
it
county's come a
has.
long way. Yeah.
One of the things I do want to celebrate you as you moved into your interim position at this point, you still left a space for another brother to come in.
That's right.
With Brother Terrell, and he's been doing a great work where he has been, and good to see him there. Let's
Phenomenal
move to your
leader.
current position. Tell us what it's all about and with this public safety, because I never heard of the position
That's
before.
right.
Yeah, most of us never heard of it. Yeah.
So educate us, my friend.
Yeah, and that's the thing about county government. Honestly, that's one of the things I'm really passionate about, is pulling back the sheet over what county government is. You know what I mean? And showing people who's actually making these decisions and influencing a lot of the implementation of the policy that the board does. And the way the county's made up is, you have your board of supervisors that are elected. You have some other electeds floating around, like the sheriff and the district attorney, the treasurer tax collector, and assessor recorder. But within the bureaucracy, you also have the CAO, and that's what Dr. Warren was saying. I was chief of staff to the CAO, and this county doesn't have a mayor, right? They have they don't have an elected official to run the county, so they appoint the CAO, the chief administrative officer.
Okay, like I said, you can't say the CAO.
I know, I
They're
got
like,
you.
what?
They go, what is that?
Chief Administrative Officer.
Chief Administrative Officer. And it's just like a CEO, right? If you think of a private sector company, you have a board, you have a CEO. County has a board, you have a CAO, Chief Administrative Officer. And right underneath the CAO, the way the county's structured, we have a general management system that structures the county. We have 4 general managers that manage the rest of the bureaucracy for the CAO. So you have the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for the Public Safety Group, and that's what I'm sitting in right now. You have the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer / Director of the Health and Human Services Agency, which you remember Nick Machione,
Right.
That he's no longer there. But you also have a Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for the Land Use and Environment Group. And then you have Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for the Finance and General Government Group. And in each one of those business groups, you have a bunch of departments that report up to the leader of that business group, right? So in the Public Safety Group, you have like the District Attorney's Office, you have the Sheriff's Department, you have Probation, you have Child Support Services, you have Animal Services, you have the Office of Emergency Services, you have the county's Fire Authority, you have the Emergency Management System. And those are the departments that are within the group. Now, you also have those 2 elected officials that I mentioned, right? And you have
The
a
sheriff
and a DA. You also have an appointed director, which is the probation officer, chief probation officer,
Right.
Tamika Nelson, his sister. So she's a direct appointment by the board. So essentially, those 3 people have dotted line reporting structures to me. I don't direct those departments because those 2 elected officials are directed by the people, right?
And
then-
both of those 2 positions, the DA and the sheriff, their terms were just extended by 2 years to bring them in office for a 6-year period.
That's right.
To line them up in terms of elections. So they were elected every 4 years, but now it's 6, and they don't have a limitation on how long they can serve.
They don't have term limits. That's correct.
No.
Yeah. Yep. But the rest of those departments, they report up to me or to the person who will be in this seat, but also, and then I'll report directly to the Chief Administrative Officer. And what our responsibility is really to make sure that policies by the board that are being directed by the board are being implemented by the departments, but also this role has a significant influence on co-creating what that looks like with those department heads, because we want to empower those department heads to be the leaders, right? The directors, but it's also about how do we co-create that, thinking about what the community wants and needs and what the board has directed us to do.
Now, there's an additional element here. The County of San Diego is a charter county, and the City of San Diego is a charter city. And so that's significant because if the county was a general purpose county, it would have more accountability to the state. Okay, tell me if I'm missing it. Because the city and the county, this is where people get confused. We talk about health services, but health services are handled by the county.
That's right.
Not the city. The city doesn't have a Department of Health Service. But then the city has a housing commission. The county has a housing commission. The Health and Human Services has what? It's about 18,000 people?
I want to say probably about 9,000 people.
8 or 9,000.
Yeah,
Okay. And I get the numbers mixed up sometimes in terms of the people. The district attorney has 1,000 people working for her. And we've had people in that position as the probation director. Cecil Stelp held a position. He also was acting director at one point of Health and Human Services. And so Leon Williams was our first black supervisor. And the county has come a long ways now because at one point the Republicans controlled it. It was always a matter who could count to 3. And if you could count to 3, then you had control. And so now the Democrats are there in control. I can talk to politics. You can't,
That's right.
You can't mention this part, okay? And so we got a lot of things going on, and we really need to have people pay closer attention to the county, because what's so confusing is that the 4th supervisorial district includes the 4th city council district, and it goes beyond just the 4th city council district.
That's right.
And so those things are important, and we have to do an education piece to the community.
Absolutely.
Most of us have, you mentioned land use. Most people have no idea about the maze that land use is with the major plan that they have and how the county makes sure that they control housing explosion by breaking it up into 10 to 20 acre tracts so that you couldn't just buy a little bit of land and build a lot of stuff. and they limited what you could put on the land
Now you're talking about back in the day, right?
back in the
Yeah.
day.
Okay. That's what,
And and we had a judge who
Yeah.
didn't understand the laws applied to him. He was in North County. Remember, he changed the course of that stream on his property, and they made him put it back the way it was. So there's a lot there.
One of the things I want to ask is that
Yeah.
working yourself up through the ranks, you saw a tremendous amount. As an African American
Yeah.
man in our community, you consistently hear about the discrimination, the deaths that are taking place in our prison system, and everything else that nature. Have they given you the opportunity, even as an interim, have you been able to start talking policy changes and being able to move the needle forward? And does that become a fear factor with the current administration or the current environment, knowing that you know so much from your experience?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a fear factor, and just to be really clear about the role of a staff, staff within the organization, we don't set policy, right? We don't set policy, and when I mentioned the difference between the elected officials.
Hold on.
Oh, boy.
Hold on. Let's say that again, because
Yeah.
see, there are some folks that think that you should be able to write.
That's right.
Put
Write
your
the
signature
laws,
on
yeah.
it and
No.
do it. So
And say, go sheriff, go do this.
yeah. So
No.
so I want to be very clear
Okay.
that people understand
Yeah.
your position and role.
That's right.
In your thing. So
Which
Right.
is implementing.
Implementing the policy of the board and supporting the policy of the sheriff, right? So in the district attorney's office, in helping them implement their work through the budget that the board provides them, because that's the other thing that people don't realize is the sheriff and DA, they're essentially their own entities within the county of San Diego, but the board of supervisors
Controls them through the budget.
controls their budget, right? Which is very important. That's why budget process is very important for a community to be involved. If you want to see change in the things like the jails or patrols on the streets and the number of sheriffs and substations, that kind of stuff that's happening in your community, you should come down to the budget hearing and tell folks what you want them to do, right? So, but going back to the whole policy versus implementing discussion, very clear delineation of duties between what the board does, which is set that policy, direct the CAO, and you'll hear that at the board meetings. Like the board is directing the chief administrative officer to go do this, and then we get a chance to go put that plan together based on what the community says. And the good thing is, our board now today is very community driven, right? And so is the sheriff and DA. I got to tell you, they are very community driven. They want to hear what the community has to say, but also they want the community to help co-create how we implement that policy. So it's our role and my role as the interim deputy chief administrative officer to lead that co-creation of how we implement that policy, right? So that we have opportunity to go say, okay, we hear you, board. We're going to go figure this out. Let's go to the community and hear what they want us to do. Take that information back to the board. This is how we want to create and implement that policy, right?
Well, in carrying out your function, do you meet directly with Kelly Martinez and with Summer Stephan?
Absolutely. It's an
And
important
not
part of this
just
role.
the delegated staff people?
That's important. Absolutely, it's an important
Okay,
part of
because
this
I
role.
think that's crucial too.
It is.
In terms of their respect for your position, because you're in a position to impact their funding.
It is, and honestly, I got our CAO and our former CAO Helen Robbins Myers and Ebony Shelton, our current CAO, they definitely empower the leaders underneath them to do that,
Yes.
and make sure that we have that level of communication. Very important. I mean, you saw some disconnects at this last budget process. I don't know if you saw when the DA came down. It was there was some issues with our budget and the budget process. And I think that was because a big piece of that was lack of communication between like the person who's sitting in this role and then that actual office and working together with it. So a very important aspect of this role moving forward is that direct line of communication and making sure we're working with them to get their budget improved.
So this asking, because this is something that someone might bring up, and how does it work? Say, for instance, I have a big concern about the in-person deaths at the prison
Yeah.
system. What is the role policy? Is that board directed, or are you able to say, okay, we're seeing this, and let me give some suggestions on how we can fix it? What role is your job playing in that? Because I know that everybody's saying something has to be done.
Yeah.
But if they're operating in a silo, how
Yeah.
can anything be done?
Well, and that's the sheriff and DA, and so does the assessor recorder and treasurer tax collector. They're elected officials. The board can't even direct and influence. The board of supervisors can't even direct and influence the policies that those elected officials set. They
Yeah.
have that much power, but they have the control over the budget, right? So it's a balance there. I don't have influence over the policy that's happening in the sheriff's department. I can make suggestions, right? And I can do the same thing that the board does and the same thing that our Citizens Law Enforcement Review Board does, which is CLERB, who is responsible for that. That's their oversight role, right? When that they actually used to be in the public safety group, but we removed them out of the public safety group strategically so they could have some separation, right, between being in the same group and having the same budget kind of communication direction within this group as the sheriff and district attorney do. Take them out, so now they're in the finance and general government group, and they
Well,
have that same
I want to make an
oversight.
observation
Yeah.
historically. San Diego's had a strange set of sheriffs, okay? Going back to Duffy, creating Duffy Town, and then having his successor, Gore, there, coming from the FBI and bringing a whole cadre with him, and only going out when that report was released, because San Diego County still has the highest rate of in custody deaths. So to go to the point that Dr. Thompson just mentioned, and I'm not pulling you into this discussion, that's not appropriate, but I'm going to make an observation based on what you just said about the money. That $15 million that was paid in that in custody death settlement, a lot of people were concerned that that money came out of the general fund of the county and it didn't come directly out of the sheriff's budget. But what a lot of people don't know is, going back to Duffy, is that the way that the sheriff's department got a lot of money was when they teamed up with DEA and all of the drug folks, and they shut down and did confiscations. There was always an agreement from the federal end to share the proceeds from the bust in terms of the money. So whatever, I don't know if you knew that, so whatever
no
monies
idea
that they
about
took
that, yeah.
in, that's why they took the cars and the boats and all that kind of stuff. And you used to see the U.S. Attorney's Office involved in the disposition of that. And there was an agreement that a lot of that money came back to the county law enforcement, which was the sheriff's department. So that's how they got money beyond your budget. And they got a lot of money because all of the busts that they made, like the DEA and customs, all of those drug busts were not just solid drugs. In many cases, it was cash. And that cash was divided up, which was kind of a interesting. So most people don't know that. And I know it because I used to fight to try to get the U.S. attorney and the judges in the feds to list those property sales with us, because they were public auctions that they sold that stuff off at, okay? And they never did do it.
Well, and to that point, the sheriff and the DA, they don't. So we have different types of what we call the color of money, right? That the county
Right.
gets. We give to departments based on our revenue sources, how we get the money comes into the county. And some of our departments are primarily what we call general purpose revenue departments that are funded basically through property tax that we
Right,
get, right? It's
right.
a large portion of our budget. But the sheriff and the district attorney, they also have other types of funding that comes from the
Federal
state, the
grants,
federal
and state,
government,
and all of those.
right? So yeah, we do control a big portion of their budget and what they get, and it's really important because a lot of that funding is for staffing and their resources, right?
Right.
And then their capital projects like their buildings and jails and facilities.
Yeah.
But a lot of the programs and projects that they run are funded by other sources of revenue that we don't have anything to do with.
Well, a perfect example of that, not to draw it out, is what happened in both National City and Chula Vista. In National City, the jail is bigger than City Hall. In Chula Vista, they have a big new jail structure, and that's because at one point, when the feds were on the crime spree, they were giving money to the law enforcement local departments to build these structures, and they ended up being bigger than the local government entities, and people started having a kickback with all of the tanks and all the kind of things that were being thrown in there. So I think there's an education need always, and your job is a big job in terms of helping to educate the public without stepping on toes, going beyond what's educational.
That's right. And I gotta tell you, like the jails, you brought up the jails, which is a significant issue in our county. And I think one of the big issues with the jails is that they're the largest mental health facility that we have in the region. Right? We have a lot of behavioral folks who have behavioral health needs that are in our jails, and they are not hospitals. Right? They're not built like that. We have medical staff, and the good thing about the sheriff, she understands that. And it's like, how do we fix this? And I think, thinking about Vista Detention Facility, which is one of our major projects that's coming up, it, basically needs to be torn down and destroyed because it is a dilapidated prison, right? Jail, and needs to be rebuilt. But, what she's planning to do is work with the community to figure out what that should look like. And then think about the fact that we also have, this is a behavioral health part of the system, because folks who are on the streets and getting arrested, they're getting locked up and they have behavioral health issues that need to be taken care of.
One of the things I'm concerned about, and this is something that I'm going to be reaching out to Sheriff Martinez is her lack of availability to have communication with the community.
Okay.
We're personally inviting her on our show because we have questions. And the reason why is because there's two ways we can go about anything. One, we can hear things and then act like we don't hear them and just keep moving forward, or come, I say before the firing squad, hear everything and then say, let me come back with an implemented plan based on the full things that I know. I know that at times it can be very uncomfortable, but I don't believe that we can ever go anywhere and think that something's not going to be uncomfortable.
That's right.
And when you selected to be in the position, and I'm going to use Dr. Warren as an example. He is a publisher of the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint. His editorials aren't always kind, but they're direct and they're to the point of what he's trying to make. Just because he has you in one editorial or two or three or four does not mean that he can't have a civilized conversation with you and address issues. So I'm thinking that how do we get her to be more accessible to the community? And no, this is not policy. You say you can make some suggestions.
Absolutely. I'm taking it back. I will take this message back to Sheriff Martinez 100%. Yeah. I agree with you 100%. And that's when I first met you, when I was walking into the Lions Den about, I think it was the Southeastern Livewell Center back in, maybe even before that.
Yeah, it was back before then.
I think it was a little before that. And it's important to do.
Interesting in terms of that, because it was Nick that brought me to meet Helen, and Nick and I had done so much with the CPS, Child Protective Services crisis, that one day he just invited me to the executive staff meeting, and as he went down the table, each person that he told to introduce themselves, I told them what problems I had with them, and I told them why I was writing about them and the whole bit. They're gone now. I mean, they retired, they died, attrition took them out. Yeah. But, I mean, they were a mess, but the things they were doing. And then when, what's his name, Adolfo stepped into the picture with probation. He made such major changes, especially with terms of how the kids were treated, uniforms, little things like, the kids are growing, and still lockdown after dinner, have some fruit that they can grab in the middle of the evening or something, The metabolism, he was just sensitive to all of those kinds of things. And so you've been there too. It's been a major evolution to get to where we are.
Yeah. And one of the things that I always say to people, and I use this as an example in my company, I used to have staff that was always mad at me, and for either something I said or I did. And I brought my staff together one day and I said, look, how can I ever correct whatever is going wrong if you never say anything? And so my encouragement to everybody in leadership or whatever, you can't correct things if you're not going to be willing to sit with your team or people that are stakeholders and listen to the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yeah. And then you come back and say this. Now, there's some people that's going to be just disagreeable just to be disagreeable. But then there's some people that get you to think and make you go, I always say it's that husband-wife moment. When your wife says something and you want to say something back, but you know that she right. And you be like,
That's right.
And you be quiet and say, I got to fix this one.
Yeah.
I think that's where I think the community is crying for, and why there's an excitement about new leadership and what's going forth is the ability to be able to reach out, pick up the telephone, and have real conversations. We might not always agree.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? But we can do it. We could disagree agreeably and say we're on opposite sides.
Yeah.
On this one.
I want to share one of the observations we have from a caller, and this will something that you can take back as a suggestion, okay? Because one of the issues raised is a question of when can people visit folks, and why are there no visitations in some instances, like with pastors, until a Friday, and why can't the family see people? There are always schedules for family visitation in terms of incarceration. Unfortunately, from what I've seen, and I've had family members by marriage that were incarcerated, and in my own family, I've experienced it, and my heart's really gone out to the manner in which family is treated so often when they go to visit. In some cases, it's almost inhumane what they're put through. They're not the guilty party, okay? And they got to get there early. They got to line up. They got to go through all kinds of changes, and I think a lot of it can be done with a lot more respect and humaneness, as opposed to treating them the way because they're related to the person that's incarcerated. And so that can be something to discuss. Sometimes you get more out of that discussion away from the cameras and all of the public, and so people end up feeling like they're making a suggestion themselves.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter as long as they do it. I mean, I don't print every story that I get. If I can resolve an issue without doing a story, I want the issue resolved. Nobody ever needs to know about it if necessary.
Yeah.
And then also about trusted stakeholders. If we have, key pastors and people that have gone either through some form of training or some form of clearance, if there's something that's majorly happened in the community, say, hey, can you go check on somebody? It would be that we should be able to have some of those trusted messengers that won't have to wait on a schedule, but that would be able to go in and say, okay, I've talked to your loved one and everything else of that nature, because that de-escalates the energy that the community might have that somebody is being either mistreated or they're at risk. And I know that when we're talking the jail system, that it has to be a secure spot. It has to be a place where we can control the environment. But how we control the environment, I always say this, when I was in education and working with young people, Scared Straight program, everything else, there was a controlled environment, but yet and still the way they treated us that were bringing kids in was very, very respectful. And I think that if we begin to build those type of relationships, and this is what my excitement is, with the new administration, people that have come not from high up and then take positions, but work their way up through the system. Now I believe we have real people that understand the real issues and that they can help affect by being the voice or a voice.
Well, a model for this already existed. I mean, over 20 years ago, the district attorney established what they now refer to as the faith-based groups. And initially when it was created, I was a member of the group. And we got a lot of matters resolved, some in North County, just by the fact that we were involved with the district attorney. And the district attorney, with our help, was able to monitor some of the staff, because staff does have to be monitored when you got issues that big. We have major problems in Oceanside. But even to this day, we're able to pick up the phone and have that relationship. And Summer's been just phenomenal about that.
Right.
I have never had a conversation with Kelly Martinez. She has never made any effort to reach out to us, and that's very significant. Bill Gore did, and I knew Bill Gore going back to his days when he was in Washington. His office was right around the corner from me with the FBI. Okay, so we often laughed about things related to the new graduates, coming out of Quantico. And it's significant because the San Diego police, they go to Quantico. That's where they're trained. Quantico is the training base for the FBI. Quantico is the training base for the Marine Corps for their officers candidate people. And when I went through officers candidate school, I was scheduled to go to Quantico, but they switched us and sent us to Puerto Rico instead of there. But we have people bringing back a lot of experience from that whole scenario. Okay. Now I don't know Kelly's experience, but it's kind of unfortunate the way Gore's situation turned out because Gore, he was as comfortable as you could get in terms of retirement checks, the whole bit. I mean, he had done it all. He'd been wherever he needed to be, and he came out to meet with us at Black Men United. We had meetings, and I know we had one meeting where it involved some sheriff's deputies that had really created a problem, and they kept sending the message they would be there for a few minutes. And he got to that meeting, we had almost 100 people there.
Oh, wow.
And he ended up canceling the rest of his schedule because we had videotape of what had taken place. We ran the video, and we asked hard questions, okay? And so we still have that happening even now. And I think it's important that you have that kind of knowledge or the person in your position because it helps your conversation bring balance from the rest of the county.
Right.
Since because of your ties to their money, you've got their attention.
Now I'm gonna pull a Kamala Harris.
Oh, boy. I'm not taking the bait.
And say it this way. In our final minutes and everything, you're in the position right now where we're looking for you to stay in that position. If you were to be able to imagine,
We can't go there.
oh, we can't do that. Imagine.
No, we
Okay.
can't go there. I promise them we won't go there.
Okay.
There are too many decisions that are about to be made at the county. I don't want anything that we say to look like
Okay.
in any way it's influencing.
Okay.
So that's why we invited him here
Appreciate that.
to talk about what he does, because he can't speak, so I'm going to speak for him, and how he works and to educate the public. That was the sole purpose of the night.
Yeah.
And we're not going to leave him with
Thank
any
you,
prerogatives to
Dr.
carry.
Warren, for
Okay.
for
That's
not
right.
having me step on those toes. He said, shh.
Yeah, no, we can't go there.
But I do kind of just address what you said earlier about having folks surrounding you that are gonna have those honest and tough and real conversations with you. And I just want to say that Ebony, our new CAO, that's her goal. Like her
Yeah.
goal is that she's trying to put people around her, right? That's gonna have those tough conversations and bring the reality of the entire story to not just her, but to the board of supervisors and everybody else.
Well,
who are
just
making
the
decisions in
selection
the
of
county. So,
Ebony makes her the Kamala Harris of San Diego County. Okay, I mean when you consider how the sister came on board, and to put a woman and to put a black woman in that position at this particular time, especially behind all of the fuss and the fight that came from people trying to stack it in the first place, I think is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us, we're going to be having her on this program in the weeks ahead. We've already talked about it. She's already agreed to come. And all of our approach right now is to serve the public with information and to get people to start paying attention so that we don't just have that crazy group that goes down there raising hell, turning the meeting out, got to call the deputies in to move them out and the whole bit, and creating that conflict over what represents First Amendment right to speak. I mean, that's an issue the Supreme Court wrestled with. And so finally, one of the members of the court said, well, this is like pornography. I can't describe it, but I know it when I see it. That's not no cure. That's not helping the public deal with
on that note,
who you let speak and who you don't let speak, okay? And so we're just acknowledging that it's a very unique time. We've got people of color in major positions in the county, from the supervisors to the deputies to probation. We got, and in many respects, it's been like a full circle coming back around, okay? And so we're excited, and we got so many people 25 and under here that have no idea the things that we just talked about.
that's right.
They have no idea of the county or what it was like or anything down there, And I salute anybody who's worked there a long time. I mean, My idea of going to lunch same time every day, eating the same stuff upstairs, once a week jogging down to the Psalmhams Lighthouse and
Yeah.
coming back looking for my break in the afternoon and go home and tell my wife, you know what? I got this guy over there. He's been doing this for 25 years. I don't know how the hell he been staying here.
Don't say that because we're trying to bring people in. We ain't trying to push people out. It's a little different now, all right?
It is
It's
a
little
lot different
now.
It's a lot different, okay, in many ways.
And,
Yeah.
and my thing is that again, I'll say congratulations in navigating.
Thank you.
From where you started to where you are now. My daughter is a county employee who is
Look at it.
navigating that same system. and
Right.
have
You're not
now-
supposed to tell him that. And then they be wanting to look for if something happens, she get a promotion or don't get one. They gonna say we don't want to.
He didn't say any names.
Yes,
There you
they
go.
won't ever know who
Okay.
she is, right?
Yeah, there you go.
She be like saying, "That ain't my daddy." No, I'm playing.
She don't claim him. She
Yeah.
don't claim him.
The biggest thing is that I think that is a masterful kudos to the county for looking for people that have served and that are part of our community. And I know that we are going to be able to get more people in the county because they see people that look like them, feel like them. But the key word is going to always be accountability.
That's right.
And I think that if we hold ourselves and each other accountable, we will continue to see the growth that we're seeing with our organization.
Well, let me say this about the growth because this is very significant. For so many years, black people never knew what positions were available in the county, and a lot of promotions were done in-house without people having any idea. One of the things that Helen helped us do before she left, and I'm very proud of it, is we got an agreement that HR would run ad with us indicating that they had positions available, and the ad contained a QR code. And when you went to the QR code, you could pull up all those positions. And all of that was put online at least, and we still do a great deal of that with the county. And so that's critical because you can't have people saying, I didn't know about it. You can't just have EEO down there and people saying they didn't know where to look at. And so that's a major move for the county.
Well, you make a good point because to your exact point, the position I'm in right now, and all four of those deputy chief administrative officer positions are vacant, and they're recruiting for all four of them.
Right.
And there are nationwide searches for all four of them, and that is not the way the county used to do it. It used to be internal promotion.
And, and you're the only county entity that's advertising locally while you're recruiting nationally. Police department didn't do it, and all the rest of them, they just don't do it. So
Yeah.
Kudos to the county for what you all are doing. And I'm excited about what's ahead. And we're going to be involved, and we're going to share information, and we're going to be here to help you in terms of what you do. And we thank you for
Appreciate that.
coming in tonight.
Absolutely.
And we hope we didn't do or say anything that jeopardizes your future. We just want people to know we love you and we're here to help you. We're not like the government saying, I'm from the government, I'm here to help. That's enough to scare the hell out of you right there. Right?
With that being said, Mr. Andrew Strong, thank you for coming in. You have heard from the desk of the editor right here on GOD Radio 1. God say the same. We'll see you next week.
All right.
I
Thank you.
appreciate y'all.